Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
A very warm welcome in the first module of week 7 of the course titled Roadmap for Patent Creation. The title of the module is Develop Your Own IPM System. We have seen in the first module the scenario that is related to IP. What is the scenario in India? We know that IP generation and IP commercialization, these are the two different things. We can see that, or we observe that IP generation is there, but IP commercialization is the issue. Mainly in the organizations like CSIR or IIT, or if you say Indian MNC, there also if you see the scenario is that IP generation is okay, but the commercialization of IP is the major issue. So, how that gap between IP generation and commercialization can be reduced? That is the first thing. The second scenario, that is second scenario in the country, what we have seen is that IP is emerging. So, availability of the IP experts is one of the major issue, and then we have seen other whatever the problems are there considering the IP management. So, in that case it is very necessary that IP and technology managers who are handling the management of IP either in the academic institute or in the organizations or in the MSME, they should get something, a tool or something like that, which will help them to develop their own IP system as well as they themselves can assess that thing. So, that is a what we can say the major need is there. So, this develop your own IPM system, here in this module we will introduce you with a simple IPM audit model. That audit model, if you follow it sequentially, how to follow that thing, that we will give you the idea. So, if you follow that thing, it will definitely help you to create your own IP system if it is not there. Second, it will help you to streamline the processes, although if IP system is there, but if somebody is not aware about what are the different processes which are there in the IP management, then you can just streamline all that processes. And the next important thing is, okay, IP system is there, but what is the performance level of that IPM system, how you can improve that thing, how you can assess that thing. So, that also you can do with this IPM model. Okay. So, this is that what we can say the simple model which is very easy to implement. You can do establishment of IP model if it is that IP system is not there, you can establish it effortlessly. This can be applied to any sector, you can try in electrical engineering sector, you can try in academic institutes, you can apply it in the research institutes. So, or if any other what we can say the sector, industry sector is there, you can apply that thing. Then the most what we can say the advantage, the other advantage is that identification of potential IP is a major issue. So, you with the help of this model, if you follow the processes, it will help you to identify the potential IP. Now, the three major things, or we can say that three major questions which will be answered by this IPM model are that how can organization develop their own IPM system, that is IPMS system, how can organization assess their own IPMS system, and how the organizations can manage IPMS efficiently for a wealth creation. So, let us see this model which includes 5 stages and 15 major IPM processes. So, here is the model. If you see this model, you can see that there are total 15 major processes, and then at the upper side you can see that the IP stages are mentioned as pre-IP stage, IP stage, post-IP stage, IP acquisition and IP enforcement as A, B, C, D and E. And within each what we can say the stage, that 5 stages are there. Within each stage you can say that in first stage, that is pre-IP stage, you are observing that there are total 5 major processes. In second, that is IP stage, you are observing 4 stages are there, 4 major processes are there. In the third, that is pre-IP stage, you can observe 3 major processes. Then in the D, that is the IP acquisition, you can observe the 2 major processes, and in the last, that is E, you are observing the what we can say 1 process. Okay. Now, how this model is developed, just to give you idea that how this model is developed, just a background, just to give you the brief idea how it is developed. So, what exactly done when we were for developing this model, we have explored the IP management system of 3 Indian organizations and 3 foreign MNCs. The organizations which we have selected for studying this IP management are, we have set some parameters for that, that is either it should be a what we can say a top IP filing organization, that is one thing. Second thing is that either Thomson Innovation award winning organization. So, we can say that the IP savvy organizations which are having a good IP portfolio and they are all from the same sector, that is the electrical engineering sector are considered. And then we have studied the IP management of each of the organization in very detail. Now, based on that study, what we have done, that we have analyzed each of the case, that is each of the organization IP management system. We have identified total 32 IPM related processes, or we have developed some insights from that total exercise. And then what we have done is that all that 32 IPM related processes we have given, or what we can say they have taken into or converted into 11 codes. And then that 11 codes whatever are there, that we have further what we can say expanded into 15 codes, because there was 2 codes, that is IP idea generation code and then IP inventory code. That 2 codes we expanded that thing. So, we come up with 15 codes. So, from 32 IPM related processes, 15 codes were generated, and from 15 codes what we have done, we have generated 5 super codes. Now, that 5 super codes and that 15 codes, with that with the help of that we have developed the IPM audit model. So, just to give this a background. Now, what are that what we can say the 11 that processes or 11 codes whatever we have identified, because what the thing happened that when we think of IP management, there are so many processes, almost there are 130 plus processes are there. So, we have clubbed that all 130 processes into that 32 IPM related processes, and then we have coded it to the just 11 codes and then expanded to 15. So, which were that first 11 codes? IP policy and contracts, IP security system, idea generation, idea selection, IP administrative protocols, IP assessment, IP inventory, IP maintenance, IP commercialization, IP acquisition, and then IP enforcement. If you see this one point that is IP security system or idea generation, within itself only these what we can say these topics are very vast, means only on IP policy and contracts you can have we can talk for hours together for what we can say we can have a course on that thing. So, if you think of idea generation, you can think of IP enforcement, IP acquisition. These are the very what we can say vast areas, right. So, we have just considered now what we have done, that we have identified this as 11 codes under the IP management process. Now, what we have done further, that this idea generation we have divided for a sake of what we can say the implementation into the 2 codes. One is like a driver, idea generation driver, and the next is like a idea generation process, right. So, these 2, and then what we have done, that inventory, maintenance of inventory when we are doing IP management is a very important. Organizations keep the varieties of inventories are created, right, based on different parameters. here what we have done, that we have suggested we can develop a 4 major inventories. Within that you can just think of so many different kinds of inventories, right. So, what we have done, we have divided that inventory into the 4 inventory, like IP inventory, either commercialized, non-commercialized and acquired, and the idea inventory, that is a potential IP, right. So, if you see the model, at the end of each stage you can see the inventory, right. So, there are 4 inventories, and then what we can say, the 5 stages and total 15 what we can say the processes. Very simple, covering almost more than 130 processes, but what we can say that with this means when you see this model, you can try to implement it very easily if you follow the certain guidelines. Okay. Now, the next whatever you are seeing is that how that 15 what we can say the codes whatever we have just shared with you, how it is converted or how it is clubbed together to make a 5 super codes. Okay. So, the 5 super codes already I have told you now that these are the 5 stages. So, when we say the IP management process, there are important stages like IP generation, IP protection, IP commercialization, IP acquisition and IP enforcement, right. And then within that there are so many activities going on in the every organization follows so many activities under this. Okay. So, let us see each of the what that each stage is. Okay. So, now starting with a first, that is a pre-IP stage. What we have done here is that this pre-IP stage is having total 5 what we can say the major processes. The major what we can say the major what we can say that here is that when we say IP management, what we have to remember is that technology strategy, innovation strategy, IP law related human resource availability and IPM tools accessibility. These are the 4 major factors when we are talking about the IP management, right. So, when we are talking about this whole model, you should appreciate that when any organization do the IP management, this technology strategy, innovation strategy, IP law related this human resource availability and tools accessibility, all these are aligned in such a way that through this IP management process maximum wealth is created. Remember well that IP management, when we are talking, the major motto is that converting that whatever the it is converting that what we can say the intangible assets are created, and that intangible assets are then what used for a capital generation, right, or wealth generation. Okay. So, here when we see this first stage, it is a value creation stage, and what is the output of this stage? You are getting a idea inventory, right. So, here you are going to dig out the potential IP of the organization, right. Now, it is very important in the organization, any organization, if they are thinking of IP management, the first important thing is that they should develop slowly the culture of a data confidentiality if it is not there, because we never know which data will be important and how it can make a very what we can say valuable asset for the organization. Unless until the commercialization happens, many a times you may not understand that thing, right. So, here data confidentiality is a very important. So, suppose if you are an individual working on some project or research, at that time also maintain that what we can say confidentiality related guidelines. We have already given you the idea in one of the tools that confidentiality is very important when we are talking about the IP. Okay. Now, when we are talking here, we will see that what this five important processes are there. The first is like a IP policy and contracts are there. So, it is expected that any organization or any academic institute, if it is there, or research organization is there, IP policy is required. So, and then obviously the contracts related to IP. We will not go much details of that, but I just give you the idea, okay, which points are important. So, IP policy and contracts, this is a very important thing. The second is like a IP generation process, or how you are that security system is there, and then the generation process is there. So, obviously, if you are we have just seen the data confidentiality. So, whatever that confidential data is there, what the security system is followed by the organization, that is the second important thing is there. Then the next is a idea generation drivers. Please remember that when IP related things are involved, it should not be restricted to R&D. It is a general concept is like okay, creation of very what we can say any invention is a duty of a R&D department. It is not the case. Whole organization should participate in that process. The manufacturing unit, the shop floor, what we can say the workers who are involved, who are doing that activity daily, rather they give you the more suggestions to do the things better. So, there should be some processes that idea generation driver should be there, so that will push the people, push the what we can say the purpose, whole what we can say the organization to think differently, think the different ideas, and there should be a mechanism to capture that ideas, right. So, the process should be there, the driver should be there, and this will result into the development of an idea inventory. We know that when we are talking about innovation and all that thing, so many ideas come up, but selection of that idea is again the next important task is there. But if we follow this basic thing, that is policy and contracts, security system, then generation drivers, then generation process, and then that will result into development of first inventory, that is a idea inventory. So, maybe you can have just we will take now one example. Suppose you are an academic institute, we will just follow this example with now the academic institute. So, what you can do, you can just have some processes, some activities in the college or in the school, so that students can give their ideas and you can make a directory, a database of that all the ideas, and then you can just explore that ideas for any further project or student project activity, or if a faculty is working on some research topic, then they can consider that particular activity. Okay. So, just to give you idea. So, this is what we can say the first stage, that is a IP stage. The second is like a important thing is like a IP protection stage. Here you have to take a decision, okay, which are the ideas we should consider for a project development, and then from there what kind of IPs can be generated, and that decision related to that protection is very important, because IP generation, when we are talking about IP protection, it is a completely there is an involvement of a big finance, and therefore, it should be very selective and guided activity. Okay. So, here you can see 4 IPM processes are there, and at the end you can see that the IP inventory is created, which is a non-commercialized IP. So, this is the stage where IP is protected and it is ready now for the commercialization or the strategic exploitation. The challenging task here is the selection. Suppose you have 100 ideas, then if you want to select only 5 ideas, how you can select that thing? So, there you have to set the parameters. So, there is a process for that also. We will not discuss that thing here, but how to select that particular what we can say the ideas. Then once you select that particular that 5 ideas, then you have to work, then how to plan that activity. Again there are processes, and after that planning the processes, how to tap that potential IP and how you should what we can say the protect that particular IP. So, there are processes for that. Okay. So, at the end of this second stage, what you are gaining is that IP inventory, which is a non-commercialized. Okay. Now, here what we can say, you can use a simple filters like for selection as a feasibility, just to give you the idea, development feasibility, current market scenario, then business relevance. I am just giving it related to the organization, that MSME or organization is there. Even in the academic institute, you can think of this kind of thing, so that applicability of a research is there. Then position of a technology in a technology life cycle. So, you should know the technology life, what is technology life cycle, there are leader, equal, follower, all that kind of things are there, and where exactly that technology is there. Then internal external resources which are available for idea development. So, there are that processes, that filters are there, you can set that filters, and based on that filters you can select the idea, and then you can work on it and you can generate the inventory, which is what we can call it as a non-commercialized IP. Now, the next, that is a third stage, that is a post IP stage. So, in the first stage you have generated idea. Now, in the second stage you have generated IP, which is not commercialized. Okay. This stage, third stage, it is a value extraction stage, right. So, you have created value, now you are going to extract it. So, it is the post IP stage, right. So, here three major processes are there, and at the end you are getting a IP inventory, that is a commercialized IP. Okay. So, challenge here is that selection of the IP for a further maintenance. We know that that every IP when you are generating, you have to give the maintenance fee, like a license fee. So, in one of the module we have kept that module, that post, what we can say, post IP, what are the mandatory requirements. So, there we will cover that what is that maintenance fee and all that thing is there. So, remember that if you want to keep that IP, you have to give the maintenance fee. So, this is a very critical decision, that suppose you are now having 100 IP portfolio of 100 IP that are to be maintained, right. And now you have to take, when you are talking about IP commercialization, that activity should be effective. So, sometimes you have to take a decision that which IP should be maintained and which IP should not be maintained. So, that is a very strategic decision is there, and that strategic decision is to be taken in the post IP stage. I just give you the example. If you see the organizations, how that work, it is said that only 2 to 5% of the IP is commercialized. If there are total 100 patents, you can say that only 2 or 5 patents are commercialized, either external or in-house development is there, something like that. So, that kind of any commercialization mode is there. Okay. Remaining 30 to 40% are there. Out of that remaining, that 30 to 40% are useful during the negotiation activities. So, if cross licensing and all kind of activities there, or strategic benefit if you want to take, some 30 to 40% of the IP will be utilized. Okay. So, it will be very useful in the negotiation. So, that is what we can say the next part is there. And the remaining, what we can say, the IP, most of the time it may not be useful in a sense. See, the meaning of this is that it shows that okay, you have 100 IP, 2 to 5 you are actually commercialization, 30 to 40% are you are using it strategically in negotiation, cross licensing and all that thing. Whatever the remaining, say 50% is there or 55% is there, what is the use of that IP? Actually, that creates your position. Okay, this organization 100 IP. So, yes, this organization is innovation savvy, it is a IP savvy, that creates your position in the market. Generally, that is the scenario, right. But that, and sometimes it is said that sometimes we may not understand or anticipate the use of that particular IP at that particular moment. If technology moves further, then probability is that the IP which is now not useful may be useful in the latter stage. So, all that things you have to decide very carefully depending on the technology, what we can say analysis and all that thing you have to do, and you have to select, you have to remember that thing, and you have to plan the activity accordingly. So, this is what we can say, that the IP commercialization activity, where you are creating the IP commercialized, the inventory, that is a commercialized IP, right. And here mostly the organizations follow, there are various ways, bundling of IP rights is there, integrative IP approach is there. So, these are the very, what we can say, the strategic or important terminologies which are used, and obviously these are the best approaches when we are talking about the commercialization. We will not go in details of that, but you just get the idea that okay, integrative IPM practice is there, bundling of IP rights is there. So, this is what the IP commercialization. The next stage is a IP acquisition. Now, we have divided into the two things, like a acquisition need and then the inventory which you are generating after acquisition. We know there are so many examples of acquisition, right. So, what the thing exactly happen in the acquisition? When any organization think of the acquisition, obviously the IP portfolio due diligence process is there. After due diligence process, all other things are taken care of, but obviously the IP portfolio of that organization, what is that IP, that portfolio is there, that IP valuation of that is done, and then accordingly the financial transaction occur, right. Many times acquisition is like what we can say to avoid competition, what we can say that is a one thing, or just one example I have given, that many of the time to avoid competition big organization do the acquisition of a small companies, right. There are many other reasons for acquisition. We will not go in detail, but you just understand that okay, that is the that there is the step, that is a process, that is a IP acquisition, and after acquisition whatever portfolio comes, that will be the portfolio, that is a acquired IP. The last important stage, the fifth stage, is the IP enforcement. Why it is important? You have taken so many efforts, right? So much efforts you have taken. You have created IP portfolio, right? Now this IP portfolio, if you will not enforce your rights, then you may not able to get your whatever the expected benefit is there from that particular portfolio. Then to get that benefit, IP enforcement is very important. So it is one of the important stage in the IP management. So there are some external, what we can say, agencies are there, dedicated agencies are there. So organization can take help of that external agencies to take care of that IP enforcement. It is a challenging task, but it is a mandatory task. Okay. So we can say overall, if you see that 5 stages and the 15 major IPM processes are there. Every stage further we can, I have already said that these 15 major processes are nothing but they are covering more than 130 IPM related processes, right. Now anybody, if you want to what we can say use this tool, how exactly you can use that tool? Suppose you are an academic institute, you are first time doing suppose the activity of IP management. Now you are observing in the model, okay, there are 15 processes. So you can decide, okay, from where I can start. So you can just imagine, you can just plan the activity, okay. For this first 6 months I can think of IP policy, I will just draft the IP policy for the organization. Then you can think of, okay, now say next 6 months I will dedicate it for the idea generation. So we will develop that drivers and we will create the processes. What kind of processes? For example, you can keep the suggestion box and you can say it as like a suggestion box, you can just say the idea box and ask this, this is a physical process. If you are an academic institute, you can ask students, staff and then what we can say the faculty member, whatever that what we can say the intellectual capital of that organization is there, you can request them to drop ideas into that box. That is a idea creation campaign you can have. So you can have some processes like that. That is a one thing. So by that you can have an idea. So after that you can assess that ideas and you can just see, you can make a list of that ideas. Okay. So first year you can dedicate for that only. And then now in the next year what you can do, select that ideas. You have a good intellectual capital, so many students and faculty members are there. Just make a groups of what we can say group of students and faculty, and then you can divide that idea. If 20 ideas also if you can take and you can make a group of 5, you can do a very nice job, you can develop a project on that thing. And then when you are doing a project planning, you can plan the IP activity also. So whatever research or project related activity we are seeing in this last 3 weeks, whatever are there, we are completely dedicating on that only. So you can just plan activity, okay, when probably I can generate IP, whether I should go for IP filing, how I can file a provisional patent, all that thing you can plan that activity. And you can have at least if you have started with 20 projects, at least you can think of, okay, 2 patents we can file. That is a good achievement in the 1.5 year or 2 years, right? And then you can start strengthening each of the what we can say the process. Slowly you can, now you can generate that idea activity, a compulsory activity every year you can have some program. Just like a cultural program, you can have an idea generation program, that you can have that kind of thing. So you can do all the activities like this, and then you can decide on, okay, that how you can do the commercialization, how you can collaborate with the local MSMEs, that also you can think of. Okay. So you can use this very effectively. It's a very so just a brief idea I am giving you how you can do that thing. Now So, what the thing is happening is that you have done all that thing. The other thing how you can use this model is that you can create a matrices. Suppose you are, I have given you the example of an academic institute. Now, if you are a MSME or if you are an Indian organization, now just started the IP activity. Based on this model, you can create a matrices for the performance efficiency check. You can take any parameters related to that, and to check the or to create a matrices, what I can suggest is that you can just visit in the reading material we have hosted the paper, means research paper that is last in the reading material. I guess it is numbered as a 14. You just check that paper. You can start reading from the section 5 of that paper, which is talking about the IPM audit model development. You just read that part. You will get the details of that, what we can say, these 15 processes are there. You can select that thing, you can just go through that thing, and from that you can select the parameters and you can develop the matrices. Okay. So, here what the thing is happening is that you are getting 4 inventories, right, and this 15 IPM processes, and this whole model slowly you can apply, you can create a matrices, and then obviously you can have a you can do the self assessment by using this model, right. This model you can use for a self assessment also. So, for that also you can create a parameters based on the activities, and then you can select at the end of the year, you can just assess whether it is done in particular way or not, and you can give you the what we can say, the on the scale of 1 to 5 you can give the marks, right, and then you can try to improve it further. So, what I have done is that I have given you just brief idea about this model. Details you can read in the paper, and you can try to implement that thing. If any queries related to implementation are there, you can just drop a mail and we can help you for that thing. Okay. So, a very simple model, you just try out and hope you can able to implement it successfully. So, here after going through the model, you just see a small video. A very warm welcome in a very special session. We are privileged that we have with us Professor N.L. Mitra, and I have a few questions and I will just discuss with sir so that we can get his views on that questions. The first question is that you know that IP Law School in IIT Kharagpur, it is a only law school in the country and it is imparting education in IP. We have specialization in LLM, we have a PhD course, and we have a LLB course dedicated to IPR. I would like to know Professor Mitra, who is the founder of this, what is the vision and with what vision he has thought that this school should be there in the IIT system.
This is a very interesting question. When we confronted with US patent attorneys, we found that they have science background, most of them were PhDs in science, and then they have taken a law degree and become a patent law attorney. In our country, IITs have not produced one lawyer. IIT has given income tax officer, police officer, secretaries, but not a lawyer, not a judge. So, legal system has become poor. Now, we thought that intellectual property right, if we have to, what the meaning, put a logic on that, it requires a kind of a good founding and training in basic sciences and technologies, where innovation and inventions are being carried on. Now, obviously, in our country there was no institution like that, and all law schools, I think law schools can build up arguments. Law school cannot make a patent application, because they do not know what is an inventive leap. What scientists can do, eureka, eureka, a law school teachers or law school students cannot do. And we thought that our legal fraternity is very poor insofar as lawyering, claiming intellectual property right, then proceduring intellectual property right, then registering intellectual property right, and then go on marketing and all that. Now, this therefore requires a thorough kind of understanding and a law school is needed in IITs for engineers, for doctors, for pharmacists. So, here in law school we have a course which is meant only for those people who are actually the mechanics of inventions and innovations. Therefore, this was established with our that mission and financed by Binod Gupta.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, moving further, if you see the current scenario, we have a law school long back, and if you see the current scenario of India and the IP awareness in India, how you will think that IP awareness, our law school, that what will be our contribution, and as well as how you see India in next 5 years or 10 years considering the IP awareness?
This is again an important question. Now, you all are concerned with properties. If you are middle class people, we know that apartments, flats can be purchased in cities, towns, and we say it is our property. But when we talk about a creation of ideas and reflected that ideas into a kind of a paper and take a registration, we do not understand what is it my property, is it somebody else's property, what is property? Now, all those questions come. We understand what is rent, but we do not understand that if I have a property, intellectual property, I can also get rent. Now, people do not understand that at all. Though we are creating every day through the intellectual, through our brains, intellectual properties in various fields, particularly in agriculture, in pharmaceuticals, we create, and indigenous people create more, but actually we are far behind for claiming, because Indian whole legal culture was not privatized in that sense that you create private properties. If you say private properties, they think that, oh, it is when you have purchased a land, but that your head, your brain is every day creating properties, you are unmindful of that. And there Western countries, they prevail on us and they take registration and then they market it, and we say market economy is bad. Market economy goes by that sense.
Okay. Now, we say that around the students are working and they are doing that inventions, innovations, the small things are there, but that is solving a major problem. So, that thing we everyday observe, and the students and this even in the thing is that in agriculture you have said just now that farmers are working on that thing, then how they can think of patenting, because we are not reaching to the patent, they may not be aware about the patent. So, how we can help these people?
No, there is a notion that patent creates intellectual property or intellectual property creates patent. Now, generally those who are top level people, they think that intellectual property is created by patent. This is wrong, idea is wrong. The idea is that every day we give problem solutions at all levels of time. That is why often I say that a person who has put a hole in a small iron rod and make your swing machine, now it has revolutionized the whole mechanism of movement, the motion, horizontal motion converted into vertical motion, vertical into horizontal motion, lateral motions. Now, this just one hole created by one person, and he perhaps did not take patent right at that, because the patent right was not there at that time. He could have taken a patent right and claim and commercialize and put money.
Right.
Then for that many periods, so many people will not have come to the weaving sections of the society or culture, and India was rich. Who knows that India did not actually did it earlier than the Western people who did it in their textile industries. That is why we want that IP awareness must be cut across all shades of life, all walks of life. Now, if I say a house is to be bought in a rural area, in a villager, he will understand it properly, right? He will not say, oh, land, oh, what is land? He will not say that. He will say, yes, land has to be purchased. But if I say that you have invented something called Havel, is only child who invented it in a remote Rajasthan place, and the child, when he puts it to the mother, he did not think about intellectual property right. He only tried to solve the mother's problem. Okay? So, it is the intellectual property that creates the intellectual property right called patent, not the patent require the create the intellectual property. It is the other way around, and this creation is goes on. Creation goes on and on and on, because human being is an intelligent animal. Human being is a rational animal, intelligent rational animal. So, therefore, every time when he does something and he has a repetitive practices, he tries to solve that problem through some ideas. Now, these ideas, if we can really put into a claim, we get a patent right claim. So, intellectual property now becoming a patent right claim becomes your property, and then you can rent it, you can put in a royalty, you can sell it, you can distribute it, you can lease it. Okay? So, this is the beauty of concept of property and right.
Right. So, now the last question, it is related to when we see the Indian MNC scenario or the industry sector, I would like to know, or academic institute, we know corporate governance is there and IP management is there. Can you relate that corporate governance and IP management?
Governance, there are two words now. Generally, we mean by corporate governance that it is a policy making board, regulating board, policy making board, controlling board. Whereas, if it is a management goes, earns profit, goes and sells it, distributes it, puts the asset to some hand so that it can maximize the profit. So, management and corporate governance, these are two different things. Now, IP, world's most of the IPs belong to corporates. What is a corporate? Now, people think corporate means only companies. Wrong. Corporate, all states are incorporated. So, I can sue a state, I can be sued by the state. All governments are incorporated, all states are incorporated, all institutions are incorporated. IIT is incorporated. So, it can sue, it can be sued, right. So, these are all incorporated, does not mean it is a company. Okay. So, company and all incorporated bodies, they have their governance. This governance prepare a policy document, policy issues, that okay, if we have, suppose our researchers are researching and they are innovating some ideas, should we have a claim, should we write a claim, who will write the claim, what is the extent of the claim, and if the claim is fortified, how we go for marketing, how commercialize it, to whom we go for commercialization, whether the individual scholar will go for commercialization or the institution will go for commercialization. All these are complicated questions of public policy. Now, actually a private right now is subjected to a public policy and regulated mechanism. You cannot leave an important right or to property of intellectual property in particular in the hand of a few person who are managing that. Okay. So, therefore, what should be the aspect of management, where he will keep the ownership, whether he keep the ownership in India or keep the ownership in Australia or in New Zealand or in St. Kitts. Now, everything has to be decided by that controlling governance called governing body for governance. So, every corporate governance have got this policy making responsibility. Now, they have to train the people, they have to evaluate the systems of research, the tools of research and the outcome of research and the product of research. Now, having said that, they have to also incentivize the scheme of research by saying, all right, if you have invented, okay, 60% of the income that arise out of your property will be going to you, but 40% you have to give it to your alma mater or the institution, or 50-50 or 40-60, whatever. Now, these are all done by the governance, training of the personnel, right. These are all governance factor. Then you have appoint a manager who will manage. Manager will now decide where you will keep this asset. This is an asset, whether it is an asset or it is a revenue income process, whether he will own it or he will lease it. Okay. So, supposing a company has got an intellectual property, company may say no, we will not keep it, we will lease it to somebody and then lease back and then pay rent. So, in our balance sheet there shall be no asset like intellectual property asset. So, there will be no idea that there is an intellectual property asset belonging to this company, and this type of thing, you know. Now, in India particularly the tax planning is difficult. Therefore, if I keep the asset, a company keeps the asset with the company's book and then company wants to sell it, there shall be a capital gain and there shall be huge capital gain to be given. Now, I want to save the capital gain, I do not want to pay government capital gain tax. That is why I want to keep my asset, though it is my asset, but in somebody else's name. So, I lease it to a company in say Australia, and that company lease me back, and that company then subleases. Okay. Sublease are having the right, power of authority to sell. So, where do I sell, who sells and who makes the profit makes a kind of a complicated process, and therefore, I save, the management saves the tax in India. So, management has to see that proper upkeep of the asset, then cost of the maintenance of the asset must be least, and then the taxation is minimum. These are the three purposes, so that his profit is maximum and he is responsible for distribution of profit as a dividend. He is not interested how much to the scholars he will get. Suppose General Motors, they have the research scholars, they have a big IP section in Bangalore. Now, they create an IP, the scholars will have to sign an assignment in favor of the company that day itself. So, they will not get anything, it is assigned, though in the name the scholar's name would be there, because US requires a natural person. So, his name would be there, but he will not get any credit for the purpose of his inventing that particular process. So, it goes to the company by assignment. Company then takes care of that whole thing. Now, these things are all done by management, but policy makers decide the policy, that if we have to keep our researchers, we have to incentivize them. So, researchers also will get say 10%, 15%, 20% of the royalties that is derived out of that asset given to them. Now, this type of things are constantly being done, and policy makers through governance and actual field work for profit, these are done by management.
Right. So, in this brief interaction, if you are a student and if you are solving a problem, you can just think of, okay, I can think of creating a property in the form of intellectual property. Then you have seen that if you are a scientist and if you are working in the corporate, you can see the scenario, sir has pointed out the scenario, and you can think of exactly whether you are doing whatever things you are doing, whether you are doing it that IP creation is there, you can just give a thought on that particular process. Also, sir, if you are a MNC, if you are a corporate person and if you are a technology and then IP manager also, you can just think of the governance and the management thing, and with this short or in the brief conversation, he has put light on so many things, and you can just take a benefit from this brief, what we can say, whatever his thoughts are there, you can take a benefit of this thing. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Okay. So, with this we come to the end of this session, that is on IPM audit model. I hope that you will use this model effectively to build up a IP system. You can start from zero, and within 3 years you can have a very good IP management system in your organization. Thank you.